Hello, it's AJ of the Mighty Glue Stick. How's it going? Thanks for tuning in, man. I appreciate it. Today I'm going to be tackling a rather large subject which I've been attempting to get to for months and months, but now I've reached my 1,000 subscriber mark and exceeded it. I thought it was safe to approach the subject of the Nine Hells, the origin of the Nine Hells and devils, and lead that into a basic description and discussion of the Infernals. So we'll start off right from the very beginning, and this is going to concentrate a lot on the lore of the Forgotten Realms, and skip over a lot of the very early lore of D&D from the earlier editions, particularly that before and around the time of the 1980s and 1990s, where there was a lot of religious persecution of the hobby, because that brought about some drastic changes to the lore of the game, which still echoes through in the sort of fragmented lore for the origin story of Asmodeus and the Nine Hells. So we're going to skip a lot of that and just basically bring it into line with a sort of more cohesive backstory, picking this and that out of the original lore to give you a basic synopsis of a possible scenario for the early history and the origin of the Nine Hells. So we'll start off with the continent of Toril. The world of Toril and the Forgotten Realms. And this is one of the prime material planes that was created by the gods. And before they were actually defined as gods, as opposed to all being primordial spirits. So the primordial spirits carved up creation, created the outer planes, determined the alignment axis of the cosmos, divided it into law and chaos, and divided the prime material away from the elemental chaos and the outer realms. And this allowed them to create worlds and stars and solar systems and galaxies. Many of the planets were created, carved out of primeval rock in the plane of Acheron, which is why you have these great big flying geometric shapes of rock and metal flying around there. It's like the construction grounds of the gods. One of these worlds that was created and later lost was Baator, which is the planet which became the Nine Hells. But originally it was a prime material world, much like any other, with oceans and seas and fabulous cities and people. But it fell to the conflict of law and chaos, which saw the creation of the demons, which poured out of the sinkhole of evil in the heart of the abyss, and flooded across all aspects of creation almost unchecked. In an effort to stop this, many of the primordial spirits went to war with them, and in the process, as with most wars, what came back from the war was not exactly in line with what they were when they left. They were tainted and became twisted and cruel and evil in their pursuit of justice, and in their the brutal tactics that they needed to engage in to fight demons who were just intent on destroying everything. They had to become things of evil. However, they were still lawful and not chaotic, and they returned to the upper planes. And this is where the conflict between what became the gods and what became the devils arose. So if we take the two gods in question, they were twin deities, and they looked like Quatl, so sort of feathered serpents, and they were responsible for the creation of humans. And the humans were basically derived from a primeval race that arrived on Faerun, which was the giants. So the giants were an alien race that were not created from the gods that created the world. They were created elsewhere. And they came to the world, and they got eventually involved in a titanic and genocidal battle with dragons. Again, a species which were not created by the gods per se. But this god in particular had created the humans and was drawing massive amounts of power from the humans in order to effect this creation, and had sent off its twin, Asmodeus. This other god, by the way, is just known as He Who Has No Name. It's a god that's lost and forgotten. So there is no real information on this god whatsoever. The humans of the Forgotten Realms don't really have a creator. Not like the dwarves have Moradin and the elves have Corellon. The humans just don't have one anymore. And I like this idea. I like the idea that the human god was actually overthrown and slain. And so herein lies the story of Asmodeus. So Asmodeus returned, and in the battle for supremacy over the demons, became more and more fallen, became more and more evil and cruel and vicious and brutal, but still retained that access of law. So this is where the alignment of lawful evil came from, and became a symbol, became the portfolio of justice, brutal justice, which was later taken up by other gods as well, such as Tyr and St. Cuthbert. But when he returned to the celestial realms, Asmodeus basically convinced the gods to sign a contract called the Pact Primeval, and because the gods couldn't understand why the creations didn't follow all of their instructions to the letter, until Asmodeus explained to them that their system did not work because they relied solely upon voluntary compliance. Asmodeus explained that the only way to ensure obedience was to threaten mortals with a disincentive. Hence, he invented the concept of punishment. And he got the gods to sign a pact primeval, and this contract allowed Asmodeus and his fellow warriors that fought demons to take up residence in the abandoned realm of Baator, to punish the souls of wicked mortals, and to extract magical energy from the souls under their care, in order to fuel their powers to further this battle against the demons. Otherwise, Asmodeus reasoned, they would have to be granted the powers of godhood, so the creative principle, in order to do their job and become equal to the gods. And the gods would surely find this unacceptable, because it would take away their power, which they needed to carry on creating the prime material realms. And so in this myth, Asmodeus created Baator, and it states that Asmodeus tortured souls in the far-off section of the upper planes, and that when their screams filled the heaven, the gods once again tried to remove Asmodeus from the upper planes, but by the Pact Primeval, Asmodeus was allowed to torture the souls in heaven. And he offered the gods an alternative, give them the power to create his own plane of existence from which to torture the souls that broke heavenly law. And the gods agreed, and Asmodeus and his devils left and created the 9 levels of hell. So in both versions of that myth, the gods found the arrangement agreeable at first. However, eventually realizing that fewer and fewer mortal souls were ascending to the upper planes and giving them their service willingly, they were basically just full of fear. And Asmodeus was deliberately tempting mortals to damnation, so over to his side. So he was tempting them into a course which would lead to their punishment. And when they arrived in Baator, in the hells, the gods found that Asmodeus had turned it into a nightmare world of endless suffering, filled with countless new devils which were being formed out of the corrupted souls that he had taken. And when he was called to account for his actions, dragged up to heaven yet again, Asmodeus uttered the famous words, "Read the fine print." So that's one of the stories, but it kind of misses out an important part, which is where the gods were not overly happy with this situation, and Asmodeus killed the god of the humans, his brother, his twin, and in the process stole his power, created a separate realm of the 9 hells improperly, and fell through all of the planes of existence and landed smack bang in the middle of the 9 hells, plunging through the core of a burning planet in an improperly sealed off creation, which ended up trapping him in the 9 hells along with all of his kin, so that when the souls went there, they basically couldn't leave. So all of the devils that he created out of their souls were trapped in the 9 hells with him, part of that contract, of course. And of course, this is extremely frustrating, and this is why you have devils which try and get out of the 9 hells as best as they can, and has also led to Asmodeus creating an outside force of sort of mercenaries called the Yugoloths. We'll get into that later on. So that's the basic rundown of who Asmodeus is. He was not a fallen angel. Angels were created later on, after the Dawn War, or during the Dawn War, where the gods needed warriors and servants. So they created these beings to do their bidding. The angels don't contribute soul energy to empower the gods' ability to create. They are just purely engines of the will of the gods. So Asmodeus is not an angel, never was an angel. He is, in actual fact, a god, a descended god, a primeval from the origin of the gods, and he's equal to the original god of the humans. And of course, this is one of the reasons why Asmodeus has a very human appearance, and is so very, very good at tempting humans to evil. He has the gift of the gab. He understands humans inimicably. Anyway, so he understands the base desires of humans because he had a part in creating them. They are an aspect. They were a creation of his twin. And the death of that twin and the destruction of the human's deity resulted in hell having the landscape that it does today, with on certain of the layers there's massive cathedrals and things like that. What was once majestic and fine has been destroyed and corrupted and blackened and turned into the iron gateways and twisted minarets of the hell landscape. And all of that symbology that the symbols of diabolism is all tied into the twisted and corrupted and destroyed religion that once existed. So yeah, it is the forbidden worship that the humans are no longer allowed to go into. This temptation to call upon a power, an effective power, but instead they must call upon other powers, other gods, and gods that have later existed. So risen humans who have become deities like St. Cuthbert, or other entities such as gods of light or darkness, or the sea or harvest and things. But they do not have a creator god anymore. So the Nine Hells have, it's basically, in the modern edition of the game, we see it as a planet. It was once a planet, and has the 9 layers of hell are now sections of it and areas of it. So on the outside you have hang on, I'll just draw up the thing here. On the outside of the 9 Hells, it's me just calling up the relevant data. You have Avernus, which is the surface layer of that world. Baator's surface layer is known as the plane of Avernus, and that is a blasted wasteland which has got a boiling sky, red tinged atmosphere, where you can never see any stars or anything like that around it. It's cut off from the rest of the universe, and it's a nasty place. It's full of sulfur and plumes of volcanic activity, and of course writhing flesh pits, and all manner of torments, and of course roving devils which keep everyone under an iron heel. And it is also the stomping ground of Tiamat, who compared to the rest of it is a relatively minor threat, really, unless directly encountered. But of course the spawn of Tiamat crawls across the planet, and her presence is very much something to worry about. Next you have, going down through Dis, which is another blasted terrain. It's a huge cavern. It kind of appears like a huge plain that stretches on for a very long way, and through the gates of Malsperance, and you encounter the river Styx, which is flooding down through the surface, great waterfalls. Menoros, the burning terrain of Phlegethos, and the Road of Cinders, which leads down to Stygia, and the freezing cold of Stygia, and the Lake of Despair, which sinks down through freezing waters, and the Road of Perdition down to Malbolge, which is the home of Asmodeus' daughter, and is littered with, and basically constructed out of the exploded, still sort of living, twitching terrain, which was once a supremely powerful hag. and the plane of the domain of Carnia, Melodimony, and Nesis and Melcheme at the core of the planet. So it is a world which is, most of the activity takes place on the inside, really, in gigantic caverns and things like that. So it's an interesting and deadly place, and very nasty. by definition, hell is not a nice place. So in coming videos, I'm going to be talking about various known demons, or sort of archetypical demons, but bear in mind there is an enormous number of demons which do not have a definition per se. So for every spiked or bearded or ice devil, there are 1,000 others who are completely unique. So you may come across ones which seem very similar, but the idea is that there are many, many more. It's kind of like the fossil record. You've got the occasional intact bone of an iguanodon or a tyrannosaurus or something like that, but there were thousands of other dinosaurs which we will never know, because we don't have any record of them. So the information about devils that is available to immortals and has been studied and can be understood is just a tip of an iceberg of damnation and the massive amount of devils which have spawned over millions of years, trapped in their own realm and corrupting souls until they become the ultimate enforcers of law, which is devilkind. So thanks for listening. Didn't go too long on this one. I was aiming for under 20 minutes, and so we're sitting around 16 or so. And I'll talk more about Asmodeus as a being, and the top layers of hell, the lords of hell, in the next video, and so on and so forth. They won't all be in a row. I'm going to split these up over successive weeks and months, but we'll get there eventually, and then I can move on to demons. So thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. Any comments down below, thoughts, questions, I welcome them, as always. Thanks for listening.